Crystal chandeliers shimmered like ice above the ballroom floor, casting prismatic light on the elite of New York's social ladder. Laughter rang out, polite and practiced. Glasses clinked in orchestral rhythm, and every movement was choreographed to impress. At the center of it all stood Damian Rowe, tall, composed, and confident, the kind of man who'd been born to own a room. His black tuxedo hugged his frame perfectly, tailored like everything else in his life, and beside him, stealing attention in her scarlet silk gown, was Selena. She was young, beautiful in that sharp-edged way that made other women tense. Glossy lips, bare shoulders, a diamond drop necklace he had bought in Monaco. Damian noticed every turned head as they walked past. He liked that. He liked watching people watch him. Cameras flashed as they stepped into the heart of the ballroom, one of the city's most exclusive charity galas, a legacy event for old money and new power. The whispers began immediately. He heard fragments. "She's not his wife, is she?" "That's her." "The assistant." "Does Lila know?" "If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from." He smiled. Let them talk. Selena leaned in, her voice sugar-sweet. "They're eating it up. They always do," Damian murmured, sipping champagne. Then he saw her, across the ballroom, illuminated by the soft glow of a crystal chandelier. Stood Lila, his wife. Black velvet wrapped her like armor. Her dark curls cascaded down one shoulder, and her makeup was understated but flawless. She wasn't alone. A man stood beside her, tall, lean, and unfamiliar. They were laughing, close, comfortable. Damian's heart stuttered. Selena followed his gaze. "Who's that?" "My wife," he said flatly. Selena blinked. "You said she wouldn't come." "She wasn't supposed to." His voice turned tight, calculated. Lila hadn't been seen in public in months. After he'd asked for a quiet separation, she'd disappeared into their upstate estate, seemingly content to vanish. No scandal. No resistance. No drama until now, and not alone. Damian couldn't stop watching. The man whispered something in Lila's ear, and she laughed. Not the stiff, guarded laugh she used at press events. A real one. Easy. Effortless. It twisted something ugly inside him. He hadn't seen that expression on her face in years. Selena tugged his arm. "Want me to say something? Stir the pot?" "No," Damian said. "Not yet." He walked forward slowly, the crowd parting as if they sensed the shift. Lila hadn't noticed him yet. Or maybe she had him and simply didn't care. That thought stung more than he expected. As he drew closer, the man beside Lila glanced up and locked eyes with Damian. There was no fear in his face. No awkwardness. Just quiet defiance, like he already knew the rules of the game. Damian's smirk faded. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was an ambush. And for the first time in years, Damian Rowe didn't feel like the one holding the power. Not here. Not tonight. 3 months earlier, the Rowe townhouse was a sanctuary of silence, the kind that wrapped around your throat and waited. Damian stood at the kitchen island, swirling a glass of red wine like it was a ritual. Lila sat across from him, spine straight, eyes unreadable. She wore a pale cardigan over her dress, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked tired but not broken. He cleared his throat like it was a business meeting. "I think we both know this isn't working anymore," Damian said, voice even. "We've grown apart. People evolve. It doesn't have to be ugly." She didn't flinch. "I'm not asking for a fight, Lila, just a peaceful, mutual parting. I'll take care of you financially, of course. The apartment in Tribeca can be yours. The driver, too." Still nothing, he leaned forward. "Say something." Lila finally looked at him, her voice soft. "You already decided." "Why pretend to ask?" Damian exhaled sharply. "Don't turn this into a performance. It's not like you're in love with me." "No," she agreed, "I'm not." That surprised him. For a moment he expected rage, begging, maybe tears. Instead he got detachment, and something else under it he couldn't quite place. A slow simmering calculation. "I'll have papers sent over," he added, masking his discomfort. "We can do this quietly, privately, no media. No courtroom." She nodded, stood up, and walked past him. No argument. No collapse. Not even a question, just silence. He should have felt relieved. Instead, a dull unease crept in. Over the next few weeks, she stopped asking questions, stopped attending charity events, She declined dinner invites, ignored phone calls, and kept to herself. On paper, she was withdrawing. But Damien knew her well enough to sense it wasn't depression. It was distance with purpose. Once he returned home to find all her paintings missing from the walls. Another time, her wedding ring was gone from the nightstand, replaced with a typed note. "Do you remember who I was before you taught me to shrink?" He dismissed it as melodrama. Emotional bait, but she never texted again. Never demanded anything, no drama. No chaos, just space. And now, standing in the ballroom watching her move freely, her hand brushing against another man's sleeve, it clicked. She had never agreed to a quiet divorce. She'd simply gone quiet to prepare something louder. Damien turned his glass slowly in his hand, tension building beneath the surface. He remembered how she used to study him, not with awe but like she was archiving patterns, mannerisms, weak points. He mistook her quiet for surrender. But what if it had been strategy? Across the room, Lila's eyes met his for a brief second. She didn't look away, didn't blink, and then she smiled. Calm, elegant, almost warm, before returning her attention to the man beside her. Not a glance. Back Damien's jaw tightened. She wasn't just reacting, she was playing her own game, and he had no idea how many moves behind he already was. The morning after the ball, Damien sat alone in his home office, blinds drawn, tie loose, jaw clenched. His untouched espresso had gone cold an hour ago. The image looped in his head. Lila in black velvet smiling at that man like he belonged beside her. He hadn't imagined it. There was something real there. Not just a flirtation. Not casual, intentional. He tapped a key. The ballroom security footage played again, frame by frame. Lila entering the venue, alone. 7 minutes later, the man joined her at the champagne fountain. No public affection. No dramatic entrance. Just quiet ease like they had rehearsed every step. Like they'd done this before. Damien's fingers twitched over the mouse. He had the gala's security team send additional footage. Lobby angles. Entrance check-ins. Even kitchen hallway cams. On one grainy feed, the man appeared again and earlier than Lila, waiting. He wasn't a guest, he wasn't surprised to see her, and Lila knew exactly where to find him. Damien. Forwarded the clip to his private investigator with one line. Find him, fast. By the afternoon, the report hit his inbox. The man's name was Elias Calder. No criminal record. No corporate history. Former clinical psychologist. Lost his license 4 years ago after a malpractice accusation. Since then, freelance trauma coaching. No online presence, low profile. But one detail stood out. Elias had once worked for a non-profit grief clinic, the same one Lila had funded quietly after her sister's overdose. Damien stared at the screen. This wasn't new, this had history. He scrubbed through other old media files, photos from gallery events, dinners, charity luncheons. In 3 different photos over the past year, Elias was there. Background peripheral, never front and center, but always near Lila, and Damien had never noticed. He sat back, throat dry. All those times he thought she was home alone. She wasn't. Selena walked in holding her phone. "You've missed 2 investor calls," she said lightly, then paused at his face. "You okay?" "Fine. You sure?" "You look—" I said I'm fine. She froze. Okay, he didn't apologize. Just waved her off, eyes glued to the screen. Later that evening, at a private board dinner, Damien's silence became noise. His hand trembled as he signed a contract. He barely responded to a joke about the gala. Someone asked about Selena. He heard Lila's name instead. One colleague leaned over. "You good, Damien?" He blinked. "Yeah, just tired." But inside he was spiraling. What did Elias know? Was it personal? Or revenge? Damien had spent years crafting his life, image, wealth, relationships, always controlling the narrative. He made mistakes, yes, but buried them deep, and now, Elias felt like a ghost from a version of himself he thought he'd buried. Worse, Lila had invited that ghost into the fight. The irony twisted deep. He had paraded his mistress in front of everyone like a move on a chessboard, but Lila had brought a mirror, and it was reflecting everything he didn't want to see. He couldn't sleep that night, not because of guilt, but because for the first time, he wasn't sure who had the upper hand. The evening sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the brownstone kitchen, painting the counter in golden stripes. Lila sat across from Elias, a steaming cup of tea between them. She stirred it absently, eyes distant, expression unreadable. "I'm not going," she said quietly. Elias didn't answer right away. He leaned back in his chair, letting her words breathe. "You don't owe him your presence," he said finally, "but you do owe yourself a choice." Lila shook her head. "He'll bring her. Parade ahead. I don't want to be part of his theater." "You wouldn't be." Elias leaned forward now, voice gentle but firm. "You wouldn't be attending his stage. You'd be reclaiming your own." She looked up at him. "Some cages," he said softly. "You don't escape. You burn." Her fingers tightened around the mug. She had spent years retreating, shrinking beneath Damien's shadow, playing roles to keep peace. The quiet wife, the supportive spouse, the one who turned the other cheek. But silence hadn't protected her. It had only made her disappear. "I used to think leaving him would destroy me," she said almost to herself. "But staying with him did it slowly." Elias didn't interrupt. Lila's voice wavered. "The things he said, it wasn't the cheating that broke me. It was how small he made me feel. Like I was a mistake wearing heels." Elias nodded, his voice low. "Shame doesn't belong to the one who suffered. It belongs to the one who caused it." She looked at him. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," he said. "It's necessary." For a long moment, there was only the sound of the spoon clinking gently against porcelain. Then she exhaled. She didn't say yes. She didn't need to. That night, she pulled the black velvet gown from the back of her closet. She hadn't worn it in years, not since their last anniversary before everything soured. It still fit, but it didn't feel like armor yet. She stared at herself in the mirror, brushing her hair with deliberate care. The ring finger on her left hand was bare. Her face was still, not sad, not angry, just steady. When she stepped into the car waiting outside, Elias was already in the passenger seat. He didn't comment on the dress, didn't flatter or praise. He simply looked at her and said, "You don't need to be louder than him. Just clearer." As they pulled into the gala, Lila felt her heart beat faster. But it wasn't fear this time, it was something else. Resolve. And when the ballroom doors opened and she stepped inside, the room didn't hush. It tilted, not because she had returned, but because she had come back changed. The envelope was ivory, unmarked, slipped under the door of Damien's office like a whisper. No postage, no handwriting, just one folded sheet of paper inside, thick, expensive, deliberate one sentence. "I know what you did in Prague." Damien's breath caught. He read it twice. Then again, as if repetition might distort the meaning. But the words remained steady, chilling in their simplicity. No threats, no demands. Just a memory. Weaponized. His hand trembled slightly as he dropped the letter onto his desk. The silence in the room shifted. Not peaceful. Not quiet. Heavy. He closed the blinds. He hadn't thought about Prague in years. He'd made sure of that. A biotech deal with a Czech startup promising revolutionary memory enhancement drugs. A goldmine. If it weren't for the unstable trials and whispers of side effects, the American investors pulled out last minute. Damien didn't. He moved forward quietly off the books using proxy corporations and ghost shell accounts. One of the lab researchers, a woman named Lenka, had reached out. She was young, ambitious, and naive. She had emailed Lila by mistake, thinking she was part of the ethics committee. That same week, Lenka died of an overdose in a hotel bathtub. The police report was clean. No foul play, no investigation. The file vanished within days. Lila had never mentioned it. Damien assumed she'd dismissed it, or believed the overdose story. But now this letter, his mind raced. Who sent it? Elias? Lila? Someone else entirely? He sat down back stiff against the leather chair and opened a private folder on his encrypted drive. PRG 2017. Documents, financial logs, travel records, buried, obscured, but not erased. He began deleting one by one. Emails, contracts, names. Then he paused, a video file. He hesitated. It was a short clip. CCTV footage from the hotel hallway. It showed Lenka knocking on a door. Damien's door. It was 3:34 p.m. She held a folder in her arms. The door opened. She entered. The timestamp ended at 11:35. That footage was never released. Only two people had access to it, Damien and Lila. He remembered her being in Prague. She'd flown out last minute, claiming she wanted to see him before heading to Italy. She stayed at the same hotel 2 floors above. She had asked nothing about the meeting. Nothing about Lenka. She had kissed him goodnight and flown. Out the next morning, he had thought she was distracted. Now he saw it differently. She had always been watching. The knock on his door interrupted the spiral. Selena peeked in, phone in hand. Someone just called the front desk asking for you, no name. Just said, "Tell Damien Prague is bleeding." He stood quickly, yanked the paper from the desk and shoved it into the shredder. The machine growled, tearing it into fine strips. Selena watched, eyebrows raised. "What's going on?" she asked. "Nothing," he muttered. "Just junk mail." But his tone betrayed him. Selena lingered in the doorway a second longer than usual before disappearing. Damien turned back to the window, staring down at the street below. His reflection hovered in the glass, familiar, composed, controlled. But something behind it felt altered. Prague had been buried. Now it was clawing back up. And if Lila truly knew what happened that night, she wasn't just playing the game, she was choosing when to end it. From across the ballroom, Damien watched Lila like a hawk circling prey it no longer understood. She didn't cling to Elias, she didn't perform. She simply existed with poise, ease, and maddening grace. The crowd leaned toward her without realizing it. She was magnetic in a way she never had been before. Or maybe he had just never seen it. Selena shifted beside him, fingers laced through his, but he barely noticed. She leaned close. "That's her?" He gave the faintest nod. "She doesn't look like someone you had to leave," she added carefully. He said nothing. Lila raised her champagne glass to someone, eyes catching his for half a second. Not long enough for a stare, but long enough for a message. Selena felt the tension in his arm. "What does she have on you?" His eyes snapped to her. "Excuse me?" "You're sweating," she said, voice light but edged. "And you keep watching her like she's holding a detonator." "I'm not discussing this with you," he muttered. Selena stepped back slightly. She was used to the performance, the dinners, the penthouse gifts, the carefully managed public appearances. But tonight wasn't scripted. Damien was off, distant, nervous. She followed his gaze again, toward the woman he had insisted was fragile, broken, and passive. But Lila was none of those things now, and Selena felt something new in her chest. Doubt a slow piano tune began, and couples drifted to the floor. Lila and Elias remained at the edge, heads close. Not touching, not kissing, just existing together, quietly dangerous. Damien's hand twitched at his side. He remembered the arguments, sharp private wars no one ever saw. Lila questioning where he'd been. He deflecting, dismissing, twisting her concern into criticism. He remembered her voice, soft but firm. "You rewrite everything I say." He had laughed in her face. "You're being dramatic." She had gone quiet. He thought it meant she was finally learning. Now he realized. She had just started writing it all down. Emails, hotel receipts, voicemails, photos, names. She never screamed, she documented. And now, she didn't need to say a word, because the threat was no longer legal. It was psychological. Damien tugged at his collar. Selena tilted her head. "Is she bluffing?" He didn't answer. She stepped closer, whispering like a lover but slicing like a blade. "Because if she's not, I need to know how far this storm will spread." Damien's jaw clenched. Selena smiled coldly. "That's what I thought." She pulled away and drifted toward the bar, leaving him standing there, heat prickling beneath his skin. He turned again toward Lila. This wasn't her reclaiming space. It was her turning the screws. Slowly, with precision and without ever raising her voice. And for the first time, Damien understood. He wasn't navigating a divorce. He was trapped in a war he no longer controlled. And she was winning. The powder room off the ballroom was drenched in soft gold light and the scent of roses, designed for elegance and whispers. Lila stood alone at the mirror, adjusting her earring with delicate precision. Her expression, as always tonight, was unreadable, a calm mask carved from something deeper than poise. The door opened behind her. Lila didn't need to turn to know who it was. Selena's heels clicked sharply on the marble floor. Too loud for the space. She paused just inside the doorway, arms folded across her chest, lips painted blood red and tight with control. "You're good," Selena said softly, stepping closer. "I'll give you that." Lila kept her eyes on the mirror. Good at what? At playing helpless. At showing up like a shadow. At getting into his head. Lila met her reflection's gaze. "I've lived there longer than you have." Selena took a breath, but it came out shakier than she intended. "I don't care what you two were. He's moved on. With me." Lila turned slightly, just enough to face her. "Has he?" Selena's jaw tightened. "You think just because you wore a pretty dress and stood near another man that you rattled him?" "Damien doesn't get rattled." Lila reached into her small clutch and pulled out a slim black USB drive. She held it out gently like it was a gift, not a weapon. "No threats," she said. "No scenes, just watch this. In your hotel room, alone." Selena hesitated. "What is it?" "Evidence," Lila replied simply. "Of what he does when no one's looking. Of how many girls wore that same necklace. Of the girl who didn't wake up." Selena's fingers curled around the drive without realizing. "If after you watch it," Lila continued, "you still love him, then he's all yours. No fight." Selena's throat moved as she swallowed. Lila stepped past her, brushing gently against her shoulder. No glares, no victory smirk, just stillness. Selena remained there, staring at the mirrored walls, suddenly unsure of her reflection. That night, Damien returned to the penthouse alone. No texts, no calls. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, tie half undone, waiting for the sound of her heels. It never came. On the side table, her phone charger was gone. Her dress bag, too. She had left quietly, just like Lila once had. Only now, Damien understood what silence truly meant. It wasn't surrender. It was the start of something unraveling. The restaurant was tucked into a quiet side street in Soho, candlelit and unassuming, the kind of place where grief could sit at the table without being noticed. Lila stirred her wine slowly, eyes fixed on the deep red swirl as if it might offer an answer. Elias sat across from her, coat off, sleeves rolled up, posture relaxed but alert. He wasn't a man who took up space, but one who noticed every inch of it. He didn't speak first. He never did. "I told him about the USB, Lila said finally. Elias nodded once. "Did she leave?" "She didn't come back," she murmured. "That's enough for now." The waiter arrived, set down 2 plates, and disappeared like smoke. Lila didn't touch her food. "He hasn't changed," she added. "Not really. Just polished the surface." "That's how he gets away with it," Elias said. "He doesn't explode. He corrodes." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Outside, the street glowed with low amber lamps and late-night footsteps. Inside, the air felt heavy, not tense, but full. Lila set her fork down. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, voice lower now. "About the coroner. About the payout. About my sister." Elias's eyes didn't waver. "You weren't ready. I should have known." "You weren't allowed to know," he said. "He made sure of that." Lila exhaled sharply, blinking away the sting in her eyes. "She wrote me a letter before she—" Her voice broke. "She said I was stronger than I knew. I thought she meant surviving him." "She meant outliving him," Elias replied. "Not just in time. In truth." The wine tasted sharper now. Lila reached into her bag and slid a folded paper across the table. The same coroner's report, now altered, signed, dated, verified. "Freedom is expensive," she said. "I want a receipt." Elias smiled faintly. "You'll have it." The waiter cleared their plates. Lila leaned back in her chair. "You know, people think we're having an affair." Elias raised a brow. "We are. With justice." She let out the smallest laugh, a sound not of joy but of relief. "It's not about revenge anymore," she said quietly. "It's about air. I haven't breathed in years." "You are now." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why did you stay after you lost your license?" "Because someone needed to remember," he said. "The system erased your sister. I couldn't." They stood, coats in hand, no lingering glances, no dramatic embraces, just understanding. Outside, Lila pulled her collar up against the breeze. "Tomorrow," she said, "everything moves." Elias nodded. The lights of the city blinked in the puddles at their feet. She walked away without looking back. This time, she didn't need saving. She was doing the burning herself. The headlines dropped at 7:04 a.m. Missing heiress tied to tech mogul Damian Rowe. Leaked NDAs point to coercion, payouts cover-up. Within hours, every major outlet had picked it up. Screens buzzed. Social feeds exploded. Photos of a fresh-faced brunette in designer heels, last seen in Paris in 2018, now ran beside Damian's corporate headshot. Her name, Ivy Dane, the 19-year-old daughter of an international art dealer. The girl no one had heard from since she'd abruptly left the country for a break. Lila sipped her morning tea. The newspaper folded neatly beside her. She didn't need to lift a finger now. The storm was moving on its own. Ivy had never been part of Damian's public narrative. He had kept her separate under the radar, an affair buried behind money threats and airtight NDAs. When Ivy vanished, it had been framed as a mental health sabbatical. But the timing had always been suspicious, and now, someone had leaked the contract. A $2.7 million settlement, a signed non-disclosure, a witness signature, fake. Lila had found the real one years ago. In a locked drawer Damian forgot to empty when he moved to their secondary apartment, she kept it. Not out of vengeance, but because truth had an expiration date, and today was its due. By mid-morning, Damian's office was in chaos. Phones rang endlessly, PR consultants scrambled, staff avoided eye contact. 2 major investors pulled scheduled meetings. A brand deal fell through. Inside his glass-walled boardroom, Damian stood in silence, the article blown up on the monitor behind him. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Lila hadn't needed to confront him. She didn't need to send a warning. She had simply waited, let the weight of his own secrets collapse from inside. Selena's absence from the penthouse still lingered like a void. Now Ivy's name reopened a deeper wound, one Damian had worked hard to bury, not because he feared it legally, but because he feared what it would do to his image, the polished, forward-thinking mogul. The visionary, the man who rescued Lila from obscurity. Now, he was being recast, and Lila wasn't in the shadows anymore. She spent the afternoon at the museum with Elias, speaking to a group of women on emotional agency. Her speech wasn't about Damian. It didn't need to be. The timing spoke for itself. And that night, she received a single text from a blocked number. "You're enjoying this." She didn't reply. Not out of avoidance, out of clarity. For years, Damian had hidden behind charm and silence. But now the world had started whispering back. And the difference was, no one was protecting him anymore. The flashbulb started before Damian reached the steps. He pushed open the side door of the ballroom, jacket wrinkled, tie undone, face flushed with exhaustion and something dangerously close to panic. The noise outside hit like a wave, my reporters, cameras, questions. "Mr. Rowe, is it true you coerced a minor heiress into silence? Who is Ivy Dane to you? What happened in Prague?" Damian squinted against the lights, raising a hand like a shield. "No comment," he muttered. But the crowd surged. "What about the coroner report?" one shouted. "Is it true you paid to have it altered?" He froze. The night air turned thick. Damian turned sharply, looking for his driver, his car, and anything to retreat into. But instead he saw something else, Elias, standing at the curb, dressed in quiet gray, holding a leather folder close to his chest. Their eyes met. For a beat, no one moved. Then Elias stepped forward, calm, collected, not angry, not smug. Just inevitable. Damian's lips curled in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding." Elias said nothing. From the other side of the crowd, 2 plainclothes officers emerged, badges already raised. "Mr. Rowe?" Damian turned, posture stiffening. "What is this?" "We have a warrant issued this evening by the state prosecutor," one officer said. "Charges include obstruction of justice, conspiracy to falsify official documents, and multiple counts of corporate fraud." Laughter burst from Damian's mouth, but it was hollow. "Are you serious?" He snapped. "This is public theater. I'm not answering anything without counsel." "That's your right," the officer replied. "But you'll need to do so downtown." The cuffs were out before Damian could move. The metallic click echoed louder than the questions. Gasps fluttered through the press. The cameras turned frenzied. Behind the line of reporters, Lila stood quietly at the edge of the sidewalk, face lit softly by the spinning red-blue of a patrol cruiser. She didn't flinch, didn't smile, just watched as her past folded in on itself. Damien looked for her in the crowd, and when he found her, his face cracked, not in rage, in recognition. He knew now. This wasn't a media ambush. It was her final move. The car door shut behind him. The officers slid in. Elias remained on the sidewalk, still holding the folder. One reporter asked him if he was Lila's new partner. He didn't respond, because this wasn't about romance. It never had been. It was about a man who had buried truth under money and silence, and a woman who had decided to dig, and the digging was done. The city lights blinked softly beyond the windows of her apartment. No paparazzi, no noise. Just the hum of traffic far below. Lila sat on the couch, blanket wrapped around her legs, a cup of tea cooling beside her. The news played low in the background. Damien Rowe to be arraigned tomorrow morning. Allegations expanding. She wasn't listening anymore. Her gaze was fixed on a photo on the shelf, one from the early days. Her and Damien at a vineyard in Sonoma, arms wrapped around each other, both smiling like they knew how to be happy. She had once thought they were perfect. And once, she would have done anything to keep it that way. She had been 24 when she met him, fresh out of grad school, unsure of herself, dazzled by his certainty. He made decisions fast, bought wine without checking the label, kissed like it was a contract. She mistook confidence for safety, charm for character. The first time he missed dinner, she told herself he was busy. The fifth time, she blamed herself for not being interesting enough. Then came the night she found a text on his phone from someone saved as Eric. It was not Eric. She confronted him gently, nervously, but he laughed. Said it was nothing. That she was insecure, emotional, too sensitive. She apologized. That night she cried into her pillow while he snored beside her. Years passed. She dressed up for him, cooked, stayed thin, memorized his meetings, faked laughter at bored dinners. Once, when he forgot her birthday, she told the waiter it was his, just to keep the evening from derailing. And still, he didn't see her. Then came the miscarriage. 6 weeks in. She had told him through tears, bleeding on the bathroom floor. He'd glanced at his phone mid-sentence. "Let's talk in the morning," he'd said. They never did. She buried it alone. Buried so many things. Until one night, after another gala where he introduced her as his +1 instead of his wife. She stood barefoot in their bedroom, holding his cufflinks in her hand, and realized something devastating. It wasn't that he didn't love her. It was that he never tried, and she had spent years trying for both of them. The next morning, she stopped, not with a bang, but with a silence so deep it terrified him. He tried to charm his way back. Half-hearted date nights, extravagant gifts, promises of weekends away, but she had already crossed over into something else. Not bitterness, not rage, just a knowing, a steady, sharp clarity that she had nothing left to explain. And now, as the world finally saw the man behind the gloss, Lila didn't feel victorious, she felt clean. Elias had once asked her what she had wanted all those years ago. Her answer had come easily. "I just wanted him to look at me." Really look. But tonight, watching the news flicker his mugshot onto the screen, she realized she didn't need him to anymore. She had finally looked at herself. The night was winding down. Inside the ballroom, chandeliers still glowed, but the laughter had softened. Waiters cleared half-finished flutes of champagne and heels clicked faintly over marble. Conversations drifted toward safer topics. Damien's name was now a cautionary whisper, no longer a source of awe. But Lila had stepped away. She stood alone on the balcony, city lights shimmering below her like a sea of glass. One hand rested lightly on the carved stone railing. In the other, a champagne flute caught the reflection of the moon. The same moon that had watched her cry in silence, bury truths too heavy for daylight, and choose again and again not to break. Tonight, it bore witness to something different. Closure. The door behind her creaked, but she didn't turn around. A pair of soft steps approached, then paused. A voice calm, curious. "Lila Rowe?" She turned slightly. A young reporter, notebook in hand, eyes wide but respectful. "I won't keep you," she said quickly. I have to ask. All of this, the gala, the timing, the documents, the testimony, was this your plan all along?" Lila didn't answer right away. She looked out at the skyline, the same city that had once swallowed her whole and now felt somehow smaller. "No," she said finally, her voice steady. "It was his," the reporter blinked. "His?" Lila met her eyes. "He built the house. I just lit the last candle." She turned back toward the railing, dismissing the question without cruelty. The reporter, understanding more than she could write, slipped back inside. Lila took another sip of champagne. It was sweeter now. Or maybe she was just present enough to taste it. Inside, the music slowed. The band was playing the final set. Elias stood near the exit, coat over his arm, already watching her through the glass. He offered a faint nod. She returned it. He was leaving in the morning, taking a position at a trauma recovery clinic upstate. He had offered to stay. She told him not to. Their chapter had ended too. Selena had left the country a week ago. Quietly. No interviews. No posts, no damage control, and Damien, he was no longer hers to worry about. The justice system had taken the wheel. Public opinion had no interest in stopping. For the first time in her life, Lila wasn't cleaning up anyone's mess. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. She wasn't surviving, she was just being. She let the night wind lift her hair slightly off her shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded. Somewhere closer, laughter bubbled from the ballroom like a tide she could re-enter whenever she chose. But not yet. Tonight didn't belong to a marriage, or to betrayal, or to a man. It belonged to the version of her that had endured without applause. The girl who once begged to be seen, and the woman who now saw herself so clearly she didn't need mirrors anymore. The ballroom had been his stage. But the ending? That had always been hers.